BTS is a 7-member South Korean K-pop group who debuted in 2013. Known for their innovative, high-energy choreography and multi-genre musical style, the group maintains a sense of authenticity, exploring common topics of mental health, coming of age, and individualism within their albums. For my album covered Redesign, I chose their 2016 studio album Wings. I began my design process by carefully re-listening to the entire Wings album to gain a better understanding of the main themes. The main themes I identified were temptation and growth, and from this I began my initial sketches. I found that a lot of my initial ideas were quite basic, so I engaged in further research to bring more depth to my ideas. I discovered that the album heavily referenced Hermann Hesse's 1919 novel Damien, a coming-of-age story following a young boy who is challenged by the concept of good and evil as he matures and finds his true self. These themes of self-discovery and temptation can be seen throughout the album. I also did some contextual style research, both on previous BTS albums and other K-pop albums. I found that key stylistic elements included digital artwork, a minimalistic style, and photographic elements, and these helped influence my additional thumbnail sketches. From my sketches, I then chose my 3 strongest concepts. My first iteration was of a sparrowhawk flying, and it drew heavy inspiration from Damien, as a sparrowhawk symbolises growth and the desire to break free in this book. Having a minimalistic digital art style, I began in Illustrator with a reference image of a flying sparrowhawk. I then used the pen tool to create the shape of the bird. I loved the dark look of the bird, so I kept it as that colour. I experimented with different composition in the image, but I settled on using the rule of thirds for the bird placement, as it created a really nice sense of movement. I also experimented with text placement and font styles, however I decided to pick a pretty simple font in the end. I started experimenting with adding extra shapes into the artwork, as I was worried that just the text and the bird was a little bit too minimalistic. So I added a circle into the middle of the image. The first one with a black fill ended up looking too much like a moon, so I just made it a circle with a thin line around it, and I quite liked how it looked at this stage, so I just ended that iteration there. My second iteration really lent into the themes of light versus dark and temptation versus self-control, which was reflected in the silhouette image of a member in black and white. I knew I wanted to do a digital artwork, so I again used Illustrator, and I found a reference image of one of the BTS members to put in. Using this, I then used the image trace feature in Illustrator to get a perfect silhouette of the member, and I copied and reflected the image, making a light side and a dark side, like the shadow self. I then experimented with the composition more, and I also changed the colour from the purple, which is commonly used in BTS albums, to a red colour, as I felt it fit the themes better. As red can commonly symbolise both excitement and passion, it also has potential negative connotations of revolution and defiance. So I felt that having that red in the cover was a really great reflection of the themes of temptation and growth. Overall, I was quite happy with this iteration. However, as the album cover is for a group, I was concerned that this was only based off one member, so I didn't end up going forward with this idea. My third iteration was a composited photography-based concept featuring a feather falling into ripples of water, and this concept focused mainly on the theme of growth. The feather in the image represented a bird taking flight, and the ripples signified the ripple effect that the group had. As this was photography based, I made sure to do a bit of research about water droplet photography, and I found some videos which really helped, although I had to improvise quite a bit as I didn't have a lot of the equipment that was in the videos. I made sure that the shutter speed was set fast to freeze the image, however it was pretty difficult timing the droplets. Although it took a while, I managed to get some great shots despite my basic equipment, which I was really happy with. I experimented with photographing the feather against both a white background and a black background, but I found that the black background yielded much better results. After importing the photographs, I then began working on the composition. Unfortunately, my Photoshop program was really struggling to edit the images, but I was able to crop the images and remove the harsh outline of the water container, seamlessly blending the two images together. Because the photographic elements were very abstract, I chose a simple font to not distract from the image. Although I wish the execution was a bit better, I was satisfied with this iteration. However, I chose not to develop this idea any further, as I felt it was a little bit too abstract for the Wings album design, and it didn't touch on the themes of temptation at all, only growth. Of the 3 versions, I chose iteration 1 to develop further, and I did some final design refinements for this image. I changed the colour to a gradient red square box from the purple and grey for the same reasons as I did in iteration 2. And I wanted the fade in gradient to make it look like the temptation was kind of sneaking in and seeping in slowly. For the back cover, I repeated that gradient, but just on the opposite side so that it would be continuous from the front. And the track list was left aligned in a white font so that it really stood out while still having a minimalistic approach. I repeated the image of the flying birds, however I put 6 more so that overall on the album design there were 7 birds to represent the 7 BTS members. After experimenting with the inner label of the record, I settled on the simple red gradient again and using the same font as the album cover. To ensure the concept had continuity, for the poster I repeated that gradient style and I had the 7 flying sparrowhawks. Overall, I was happy with the final execution of the images I produced. I believe I probably could have experimented a bit more with the poster composition. However, overall, I believe that the new album cover redesign successfully reflected the themes of temptation and growth in the BTS album Wings.